Distinguished guests, dear friends, very warm greetings to you all. I sincerely regret I cannot be with you at your important regional consultation on achieving Target 8.7 of the Sustainable Development Goals. But I am very pleased to join you through this message and to wish you a very successful meeting. Preventing and eliminating child labor is an ethical and legal imperative that we cannot afford to ignore or postpone any longer. Already in 2006, the United Nations study on violence against children had underlined the high incidence of violence in the workplace, including ill treatment by employers, sexual violence of child domestic workers, and the use of violence to coerce children to work, to exploit and keep them in servitude, and to punish and control them. In response, the UN study urged the ratification and implementation of international legal instruments on child labor, especially ILO Conventions 138 and 182, which are reinforced today by Convention 189 on domestic workers, as well as the strengthening of domestic laws, policies and programs to address the root causes of child labor and protect the rights of children concerned, and social mobilization initiatives to break the invisibility of this phenomenon and change mindsets that find child labor acceptable. While much progress has been made in these areas, millions of children continue to endure appalling forms of exploitation and perform work that is hazardous or that interferes with their education or is harmful to their health and development. A large number suffer the deeply traumatic impact of violence through the worst forms of child labor, including forced labor, trafficking, and sexual exploitation. All of these children are deprived of their childhood, potential, and dignity. As Special Representative of the Secretary General, I have been a strong and consistent advocate for the protection of children from labor exploitation and call upon governments, international organizations, academia, the media, the private sector, and civil society to work hand in hand for its eradication as a matter of urgency. Building upon the global conferences on child labor, our common cause was greatly strengthened when the United Nations unanimously adopted the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda in September 2015. For the first time, the International Development Agenda has explicit targets to end violence against children and to end by 2025 all forms of child labor. These are targets behind which we can all rally. The 2030 Agenda recognizes that violations of children's rights often have common root causes and must be addressed through well-coordinated action. To achieve the SDG targets, all stakeholders need to come together, working in new and strengthened partnerships to create a world free from fear and from violence where no child is left behind. Under the inspiring leadership of the ILO, I have been honored to work with colleagues to identify the necessary key strategic components of Alliance 8.7. We all agree that close consultation with stakeholders is an essential element. We need a shared analysis of the causes of child labor, how it can be most effectively addressed, and what contribution each can make towards its elimination. A joint strategy for moving towards Target 8.7 together. Your discussions over the next 2 days are a crucial contribution to that process, and I remain strongly committed to supporting the follow-up measures you will agree to pursue. Dear friends, violence and child labor are closely interrelated and represent two manifestations of the same phenomenon. They have serious and lifelong impacts on children's lives. They have huge costs for societies and impede economic and social progress, and they are often socially accepted and take place in hidden and clandestine settings. But they are not inevitable. Violence and child labor can be brought to an end. The new Sustainable Development Agenda gives us a golden opportunity to make this happen. The countdown to 2030 has begun. It's high time to put an end to all forms of exploitation and violence against children. Together, we can make them part of a distant past.